Church planting is something that has been on our hearts for quite a while now. This desire to see churches planted and the gospel spread through local churches. Probably about 4 years ago, I mentioned to my wife that I think we are supposed to plant a church. And to that, I'm pretty sure she said, I'm crazy. But God began to quickly work in her life, and it wasn't long before she was on board, feeling like, hey, this is what God has for our lives. We had no idea what that meant for us, but we knew at some point church planting was where God was leading us. So for the past couple of years, we've really been trying to press into that, what that means, asking God to show us where we're supposed to go, when we're supposed to go. And then about a year ago, we actually started thinking that God might be leading us towards Festus. And God had dropped it in our mind a few times through various ways and people. And so we pressed into that. But the more we did, we actually realized that it didn't seem to feel right. We actually sold our house thinking that God was leading us that way and that we were going to end up moving up there. And actually the day that we signed a contract on our house, I began to just have this overwhelming feeling that God was doing something different, actually. We had been praying for months, like, God, show us what you want, reveal to us your plan, like what we're supposed to do. And over those next few days after we signed to sell our house, God began to speak to both of us in different ways about what he wanted for us, through speaking into our lives, through opening and closing doors, and through going through some hard stuff with people right here in our congregation around us, even through dreams that multiple people had. We began to understand that God was speaking to us. Probably the most notable story is that a few days after we signed a contract to sell our house, Tony, one of our deacons, comes up to me and says, hey, I don't really want to tell you this, but I think I have to. And what he tells me is that basically he had this dream about me, and in this dream I had a bunch of holes in me, but that people started praying over me, and then those holes got filled in and everything was fine. And of course I was like, well, that's reassuring. So Tony prays over me, and I told some other people about it, said, hey, obviously I use more prayers, more people praying into this. But it was like instantly after hearing that, God put it in my mind that, like, hey, you've got a bunch of holes in your plans. You need to keep praying into this whole thing. But it became clear that those holes in my plans were basically all of my plans. All of my plans had holes in them because they were my plans and not God's plans. And it was over those next 24 hours that God really began to speak to us. We had been wrestling with where to go, when to go, all of that. And it was like it just hit us both at the same time. This overwhelming sense that God was leading us to Bonne Terre. And finally, I looked at Amanda and I said, hey, I think we're supposed to go to Bonne Terre. And she just said, okay. And here's the funny part, that now that we think of it, it's funny, but we realized that the one place that we've kept saying no to and saying, no, we don't want to do that. Like over the last 2 years, the one place we kept saying no to is Bonne Terre. But it was like all of a sudden, God brought this wave of mercy for Bonne Terre onto our lives. And we knew that, without a doubt, that God was calling us there. So the next day I wake up thinking, I wonder if there's a church building for sale. I don't know why that came into my mind, but I did a quick search to find out that literally a church had just been listed because their members decided to close their doors. So I sent it to Ben, I sent it to the rest of the team, and we go look at it. And really the way this building worked out is just further confirmation that God is in this. The building was listed for $375,000. So we don't have $375,000. But after meeting with their leadership, hearing their heart for just seeing the building continue to be used for ministry, our other team just said, hey, we're going to be honest with you guys, we don't have that, but we do have $23,000 remaining from our Advent Conspiracy offering that we've already had set aside for church planting efforts. We have this now. Is there any way that you consider taking that so we can see this building continue to be used for ministry? And here's how we know that God is in this. They said yes. They said, yes, we'll accept your offer. And so now we're seeing this vision of a church plant quickly come to life. And now we have a building that we'll be able to use and call home and be able to use for ministry. And we're just beyond excited about what God's doing in our lives, in the life of our church. Seeing how God has worked this whole thing out has just been amazing. We're excited to start this journey together, to truly live out the mission and vision of our church and to see disciples made for His glory.